Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very, very accomplished thinker from Estonia, Mr. Ingvar Villido, also named Ishwarananda. Ingvar, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh, for inviting me to your incredible show.
Thank you. Ingvar is an author of a book titled Practical Consciousness, Freeing Yourself from Emotional Addiction to Live a More Joyful Life. And we can see the book just behind Ingvar. He's a spiritual teacher and author, and he's the founder of the Practical Consciousness Foundation. And he just told me that he has visited India more times than he can probably count.
Right.
So, Ingvar, what got you interested in spirituality and yoga?
At the beginning, I wasn't interested, at all, but it just came somehow. But if I start to remember, I was at 6, maybe. I read from one magazine about pranayamas, and I can imagine practicing. Yeah. And then at 16, approximately, I had yoga nidra experience with Turiya state. Turiya state is incredible state of consciousness, right? But I didn't know what was those things, And then beginning of 20s, I was invited to the karate. Yeah, with some friend. And I'm going there, we're making physical exercises, but they say, it's actually some spiritual practices. It's not only physical. I don't know nothing about it. I was totally like blind, And I start to become a little bit curious about those things. And I think that was the beginning. And that was the reason why I started to go deeper and deeper to some spiritual knowledge through books and other things. But actually, I wasn't so happy because I'm engineer-minded, because I didn't get some practical points. It was like stories, philosophies, some practices, what is beyond them wasn't explained.
Right.
And then I don't search anymore. I just go deeper, deeper, deeper. And then incredible worlds start to open up.
Wow. Fascinating. And you also started studying ancient human knowledge. Tell me some of your key learnings.
I was like pioneer for myself because I didn't have teachers. And I make some kind of discoveries, but I didn't know what it was. And I started to search some references for those experiences and discoveries. And finally, I found very, very huge similarity with the Siddha tradition. Siddhas they are ancient scientists.
Correct.
I think you know, right? They're really incredible scientists and researchers. And what I found, some key learnings: we are not what we feel or think. We are something different, and it's called always like true self. We have one incredible tool. It's consciousness with 7 properties. Its ability to be aware, to discern, to go deeper, to understand, and receive insights, intuition, inspiration. All those qualities belongs to the consciousness. And that's important thing. Then we can use some tandems through self and consciousness to make actually incredible changes with us as normal humans, to influence to our emotional part, mental or thinking part, even to the consciousness, to resolve many, many problems, global problems, starting from true self or yourself, right? And we can create us much more better if we know how to do it with right tools. It's very important to know, because today people think, oh, they cannot change nothing, but actually only you individually can make incredible, significant changes.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Let me now move to your book, Practical Consciousness, Freeing Yourself from Emotional Addiction to Live a More Joyful Life. First, tell me, is this book available on Amazon?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So I will go and check your book, and I will also ask all our viewers and listeners to go and check your book on Amazon.
Thank you.
So Ingvar, let me start by asking you, what is practical consciousness?
Practical consciousness is tandem, true self and consciousness with intention. And by my research, I am making some kind of sets, how we can use that tandem to make changes. And those sets are divided to the different purposes to make changes, like I said before. And it's in the same way, at the same time, it's educational program for everyone.
Very interesting. And you did tell me about how you started on your spiritual journey, especially when you discovered pranayama when you were only 6 years old. But how did you follow through on this spiritual journey after you discovered pranayama at 16 and yoga nidra at 16?
I just forget those experiences. They wasn't so relevant for me because, child is their child. They like to do some different things. But after many years, I start to really understand what is yoga nidra, for example, what is state of turiya, and etc. But all those things actually start from my first teacher, who taught to me about Chinese martial arts, acupuncture, and Agni yoga. It was very interesting for me, but I just floating on the surface, and it wasn't. I don't understand what that actually is, But if you go, I'm going deeper, deeper, and deeper, and then I start to slowly understand. For example, a history of acupuncture is quite simple, that it was actually one Chinese, how that in English,
acupuncture
ruler.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And he actually says those channels and just playing with them, to influence the people. But I asked myself, how is it possible to see those things? Yeah, it was like very, very practical question. And then I just start to discover how it's become possible for me too. And I found a way.
Wow.
Yeah. Today is not a problem to see those channels and other hidden things, what people call spiritual things. Actually, they are not so spiritual. They're just invisible,
And from spirituality, you have also decided to focus on emotions.
Yes,
why have you done that?
Yeah. Emotions or emotional people are so widely known. It's very normal, right? But for example, if you remember your issue, maybe some heart or whatever, you start to feel it. It means you have your problem, your issue. But if you remember this issue or problem without emotion, you can avoid emotional influence, right? Then you will see it's become neutral. But if you're looking through this experience, you can understand our problems are made by emotions, not by thinking, like how people usually think about it.
Correct.
Yes. And that was a reason, very simple, logical reason why I'm start to write book about emotions.
Wonderful. But you also say that we can get rid of our emotions. Tell me a little more, because as human beings, anger, sorrow, um, happiness, and there are so many emotions we go through every day. Why do we need to be able to manage our emotions?
Managing of emotions is very, very hard. You need to suppress them, you need to avoid them.
Correct.
But if you don't have some harmful emotions, you don't need to avoid them, you don't need to suppress, right? Because suppressing making another consequences to the physical health, right? It's much more easier to become free from them. But if you're looking at children's, you see at the beginning, they have only true self and consciousness.
Correct.
And slowly emotions become added. It's maybe unusual what I say now, but it's like some kind of sickness which are coming and influencing to the children. And that's the reason why they become forgotten their true self and consciousness, and they start to believe we are emotions. It's quite messy, knowledge, But if you have become involved to the emotional, mental processes, actually, it's making confusion, strong confusion, because we're losing our objectivity about everything, actually.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and I think Patanjali Yoga Sutras. He talking about kleshas, which one are fluctuations, which are raising up, and influencing us. And one important task is to become free from them. But if you're looking, what are those fluctuations? You will see it's always emotional, mental complexes, right?
Fascinating.
It's absolutely, yeah. And if you're looking term karma, for example, or destiny, it's become always made by emotions and thoughts. But if you become separated from them, we call it dharma.
Yep. Well said. Well said. You also say that, for people who don't want to get rid of positive emotions, what is your message to them?
They can keep positive emotions, but if you imagine, for example, you make a similarity, it's like candy. Positive emotions like candy. You put it to the mouth, you can chew it. It's finally you don't have it anymore. What follows? Some needs. You need to do again something to receive again positive emotion. Next candy. So if you have candy, you are happy. If you don't have candy, you are unhappy.
Okay. Wonderful. Ingvar, you also have quite a following in Estonia and other countries, and you've been teaching the techniques in your book for a long time. Tell me about some of your teachings.
How it happens? It's actually the people coming. They're coming together. Then how it starts? I have explanations. Then we have a practical part of same explanation. Participants they can find practical part of explanations or theory, or they become to know. Then we're practicing, they have results. If someone making something wrong, I actually guiding that person. We again practicing. And of course we have slides, we have handouts and other things. It's very practical, very, very practical. And of course, whatever kind of questions are always welcomed.
And how do people react to your thinking of, views that are coming out of what in India we would call Sanatan Dharma?
Sanatan Dharma is a holy path, holy road.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, Hindus are not Hindus,
I know.
They actually, it's Sanatan Dharma is made for them, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I've been in India and I saw many, many, many people who actually going by this road. But I saw so many believers.
Yeah.
And for me, India is very important because Hindus keeping knowledge, even they don't don't go deep to the practical source of that knowledge, they can keep it, right? And always, if I'm talking about same things, what I'm explaining now, people become curious because they need to know. And they are very happy, if I do some exercises or even some miracles in India. It happened many times with people in the temples, for example, and they hundreds of people coming. They coming to see some guy is here who can help them, with some things, and it's incredible.
Absolutely.
But it's in India it's usual, but in other countries, it's quite difficult because they don't know what is Sanatana Dharma. Very, very often they know what is this business and relationships and things about money and etc. But they still are interested about some practical spirituality because we have so much problems around the globe without solutions.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Well said. Ingvar, you're also a yogi. How does your yoga practice fit into the elimination of emotions?
Yoga is not experiencing of something. Yoga means union.
Correct.
And union with God himself, or in yoga we say, or Siddha teachings, it's Shiva. It's same name is same, God or Shiva, right? It's actually union with God. That's main purpose. But yoga never said you need to take union with emotions or thoughts or a confusion or whatever. That's the reason why we are cleaning our inner world or within from fluctuations, from things which one actually stucking us here to become more free. Free means true self become free from experiences, and our consciousness become free from concentration to the different fluctuations. That's the reason. But to be without emotions is actually very good. You see, I'm not so emotional because I'm experiencing my true self.
Correct.
Yeah, I am. I found it, and I am true self very long time. But what is important here in this experience, you can always be positive, without any conditions, instead of emotions. And I call it natural goodness.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. And what a powerful comment you just made on natural goodness.
Yeah.
But moving on, what has changed in your personal life since gaining so much control over your emotions?
Actually, Ashutosh, I don't control emotions because I don't have them anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're talking about automized processes, about reflexes. We're releasing all reflexes, but doesn't mean we cannot use emotions. We can use them, but by purpose. For example, if I need, I'm using emotions and I'm using thinking too, because normally I don't think. I'm using only consciousness, properties of consciousness.
Wow. Okay.
How changed my life? Significantly. It's absolutely different. My understanding about life and the things what we are doing here about destiny or karma become absolutely different.
Fascinating. So I have time for two more questions. My next question is, if readers of your book could take away one lesson from practical consciousness, what would you want it to be?
Actually, we have 14 different lessons.
Okay.
All their practical lessons there. But one, what can be very, very useful for listeners is how to become thoughtless, how to become without thinking, because thinking bothering lot of people around the globe. They can sleep, they have some closed ideas or rounded ideas, whatever. Let's do it together. First is thinking. Use thinking process. Close your eyes, please. Thinking loudly, so loud how you can, or make some very high sound in your head, or very low, or even you can shout to someone very strongly. Do it 10 seconds, for example.
Okay.
Then become aware of your throat area, and you find one tension is here. This is tension of vocal cords. Relax that tension intentionally and keep relaxed. And then look, you don't have any thoughts in your head. They're gone.
Correct. Well said.
Yeah, and if you're practicing it, you become thoughtless. But it's very important to know what is this silence, which one you can discover now. You can find here is the peace, calmness, you're balanced here, and actually it's your consciousness. You found it. This is it. And just continue with your consciousness in daily life. You become much more smarter, just by observing, to understanding, and it helps a lot.
That's true. And it's often said that if you can reach a stage where your mind is blank, it's a very difficult stage to come to, but that's also an advanced form of meditation.
Yes, but look, your mind bothering always because we are always concentrated to it, right? Or you are experiencing of it. But if you're asking, are you mind, or you are that who knows you have mind, then you can find a true self. But if you become true self, you find who you are because you exist, and everyone know it.
Correct.
If you become yourself, even if you have thoughts, they don't bother you anymore because you don't go to experience them. You're just staying with yourself. Then it's no matter they are here or not. It's anyway you feel yourself great.
But yet, one more question I have is that most of us are householders, which is also part of Sanatana, one part of your life where you bring up family. If we become emotionless towards our own family, how will our family react to us?
I have family too, right? I have wife and 3 grown-up kids. I have a puppy, a dog, right? And actually that life become much more balanced.
Okay.
We don't have any strugglings. We don't have those kind of tensions. We have understanding. We're supporting each other in calm way. And it's great.
I agree with you.
It's great.
I agree.
If we need to be emotionally positive, we can be. It's no problem. Yeah.
I agree.
It's actually something different.
Correct. And of course, one very powerful negative emotion we all have is ego. And if we can get rid of our ego, we will all be much happier people.
My understanding about ego is a little bit different. Ego is complex, which one consists different emotions and different thoughts. It's huge complex, but to get rid of it totally is impossible.
Correct.
That's the reason why you start to release emotions and your ego become always smaller, because thoughts without emotions are neutral. They're not harmful. They have wrong information about you and the world and other things, but you can correct it by the tandem too. Right?
Very interesting. And my last question to you, what would you recommend for readers who have read your book, Practical Consciousness, to understand and learn more?
That that kind of question is very good because I have so many knowledges, what can follow it. It's that explanation become too long. Maybe it's good to visit, for example, practicalconsciousness.com website or Villido.com, and we have a lot of information there about things which are beyond this book. And actually, the topic of emotions, it's maybe 5% of knowledges, or all knowledges. We have Babaji Kriya yoga, then we have Ishwarananda yoga. We have this is for rest of your life till you become absolutely free. Emerging to the God Himself.
Fascinating.
We have all the paths.
Fascinating. Ingvar, on that note, thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about your incredible journey and your journey into spirituality, yoga, and your own learnings. Thank you also for talking to me about your book, Practical Consciousness, about emotions, about how the importance of us to be able to really manage our own selves. I think I could have carried on this conversation with you for many hours, because you obviously have so much knowledge about Sanatan Dharma and so many of our parts from our country. But that I'll keep for some other day. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you to invite me here and share this knowledge. Thank you, and I have very good wish. Be successful.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.